we're just gonna pick right up where we left off. She turned to you and she said, right, well, I do appreciate you delivering this to me. This has in many ways saved my life. I would actually like to ask further assistance from you because, as you could probably tell on your way here, the Einzberns have a bit of a problem at the moment involving, well, she just gestures at everything. I could see from up here when you came in, at least once you crossed the Saberberry, that the tree attacked you. It's fortunate you were standing where you were. They mean business. I saw a few of them actually kill some of my sisters from a distance.
Ooh, that's not very good.
I wouldn't recommend it. It's not a good way to go. I also noticed that you did seem to fix the Lanza statue as well. That brought a lot of peace to my sisters, which I appreciate personally, and it may also be helpful for the task that comes next. Let me ask you this first. How would you like to be rich?
Well, I mean, money's certainly helpful in modern society. I won't say no.
Well, essentially, right now, following some unfortunate recent events, the Einzberns have had several setbacks, not the least of which being that giant tree in the middle of our castle, and from what I could tell, the destruction of everyone but me. As you might know from that potion that I've commissioned from you, we do have gold. That is something that I would be very happy to part with if it meant we could clear out that tree before it destroys our ley line, and I got your assistance getting the old man back online and getting my family in order.
Old man?
Online?
Oh, right, yes. The head of our family it's a golem. Not like the one you have outside, but still an artificial creature. He's an old man. He's kind of a bastard. If he can be repaired, then he can operate the castle and we can get the homunculi back and continue the family mission that we've been engaged in for over 1,000 years. That is sort of our job.
What exactly would this mission be?
What do you know of the true magics?
I don't know. I guess we should make a roll.
That would be an Arcana check, yeah. You both know that there are 5 of them, and that, like, of the 5 of them, only a few of them are really known in any detail. Pretty much everyone who is a mage in Europe is aware of at least the second magic, because the guy who knows it is still around and kind of a cocky ass who makes life miserable for the clock tower, which you think would probably be pretty funny. And that's something both of you would just know. You don't know many details about like what it is, you just know it's a big deal.
Yeah, I can't say that I know too terribly much.
It's not something I've studied, no.
That is perfectly fair. I am familiar that there are 5 of them, but it's not been my area of study either. It's one of those things that I have a feeling you either live for it or you don't care. Well, you're not wrong there. We care a great deal. One of our ancestors discovered the 3rd magic, but was not very good at it. So we've spent the last 2,000 years now trying to figure it out in a better way. And that's what we do here. We study that. Well, my job is more to be a lookout, to make sure that no one interrupts the work. But as you can tell, I've failed at least once in that. I myself don't really understand it either. That's more the golem's jurisdiction. This is not my area, but what I do know is that a little over a year ago, a few of our number were sent to Japan, where they were to participate in a ritual. We actually are one of the founding families of it. It's known as the Fuyuki Holy Grail War. Penelope remembers that Kwaku mentioned that there was a ritual going on in Fuyuki prior to the incident from last year. 10 years before that. Apparently Fuyuki just keeps having these rituals that go badly. Anise can remember a bit more. It's been going on for a while. She learned a bit about it from some of her teachers when they were talking about the nature of spirits and the nature of the reverse side of the world. There's a place that phantasmal species like yourselves, but much older and more powerful, live. For the most part, since the world got to the end of the Age of Gods. There's the human side, which the group of you are unfortunately on. And then there's the other side, which is vast and impressive and full of all the mythological things and the gods and all of the things that we haven't seen in some time. Nowadays, the only time you're really going to see anything even remotely like that would be during a ritual like the Fuyuki Holy Grail War, which at the time you were learning this had happened 4 times. And so there were just, various stories of, they're called heroic spirits. They're just larger than life heroes and beings of mythology that manifest for a short period of time to beat the crap out of each other. There are occasionally sightings, and then like the church and the Mages Association cover it up. No one from your circles is really involved in it because it's run by the Mages Association and the church, and you have no desire to be on either of those. Now it makes sense if the Einzberns are one of the families that runs it, because you gotta have some reason to do that, and a golem running a bunch of homunculi would be a reason to keep something like that up for generation after generation, because they don't really vary. They just continue doing a thing until they get the result they want. Yes, that is exactly the ritual. It's taken place 5 times now. For what we can tell, it's never really gone to completion. I don't know what happened the 5th time last year. I just know that even I get the news and didn't end well. But as is the mission, as soon as one of these is over, we get ready for the next one.
How often do they usually happen?
My understanding is that it's supposed to be every 60 years. Well, we shouldn't have had one last year since we had one 11 years ago.
Yeah. Seems recently things have been weird.
Indeed they have. Kwaku is not offering information, but he's very clearly paying attention. Well, suffice it to say, we can't prepare for the next one without a golem and homunculi to do that. If that large tree continues to consume all of the mana from the region, which it clearly is doing based on what it's doing to all the local wildlife and trees, we won't be here. And then there's no telling what will happen the next time the ritual would come up.
Well, I have quite a vested interest in helping you get rid of that tree, that's for sure.
Druids hate this stuff because it just ruins an ecosystem, and there's not much you can do about it short of finding the central tree of it and killing it, which, given it's a murder forest, most of the time it's just accepted as, well, that area is dead to us.
Yeah, I'll explain my theory about it being a child of Anash and not being too fond of the concept. I will help you get rid of this tree regardless of whether or not there's compensation, but again, I won't say no to more gold.
I promise we have more than we can spend.
How long is this gonna take, you think?
Well, given the tree will likely kill everything that's here within a few days, I can't imagine it'll take longer than a few days. Let me help you understand the situation, and then you can decide if it's something you would like to help with. I obviously will not blame you if you do not wish to partake in our problems. So, all of this began fairly recently. A man that I don't really know who he is approached the bounded field on the outside. I can't see him. In fact, this will be easier. Come on. Come over here. It will save some trouble. She's walking you over to the fireplace. She actually grabs some of the wood that's to the side of it and tosses it in the fireplace. And then she lights it. And then she invites you to take a look into the fireplace. So as you're looking into it, you can actually see something in the flames. Each of the statues in this area is tied to an aspect of our heroic spirit summoning system as part of the Grail War. They each provide a different defense to the castle. The one outside here is the Archer statue, and it has the ability to see anything outdoors in this region. So this is the castle, and now I'm going to show you what it looks like inside the castle courtyard. As you can see, it's a very large tree.
Yeah, that's a pretty big tree.
Very, yes.
So as you can see here, I can use this fireplace connected to the statue to see what's going on, but only so far as the barrier. Can't actually see outside. The saber barrier prevents magic from going through it in both directions.
Ah.
It is an amazing defensive boon that also leaves us a bit blind. It's why 2 of the other statues are outside of it. I was informed by some of the local wildlife that there was a strange man outside. Apparently he was summoning elementals. Unable to see it myself, I went to investigate. When I passed through the barrier, I discovered a man who, the best way that I could kind of describe him would be not quite human or humanoid, but closer to an elemental. If you've ever seen one of those, he's somewhere in the middle. It's not so much that he's tall as he's long, like his features were stretched out. His arms and legs were longer than they should be for any species, human or phantasmal, that I've seen. His skin was covered in bark. It's similar to the spell that druids, your people use. That may have been what was in effect, but it did obscure a lot of his features. His hair was human-like hair. It was a dark brown, but it was matty. There was actually like moss and twigs and things like that inside of it. He was wearing dark robes. His robes had patches in it, like areas that were put away wet or something. They were stained, but in the stains there was actually like fungus, small mushrooms and other things like that. It was a very strange person to see, and this is coming from a woman who lives in the woods. I would wager, as strange and twisted as he was, if he were to stand up straight, he would probably be 7 or more feet tall, but he was hunched instead. He was holding a curled wooden staff, and he was summoning elementals. It was strange. I approached him and asked him to state his business, and then something hit me from behind. And I don't mean hit me as in I fell over. I mean, I flew across the area. In fact, the only reason I know that one of the statues broke my fall is the fact that they didn't kill me. I was knocked into what we call the assassin statue. Upon coming into contact with it, I assumed they were no longer able to see me and just moved on.
I think we encountered that statue as well.
Yeah.
It normally keeps people away through mental trickery, but in this case, it saved my life. Once he created his elementals, they set to work doing something to the pasta statue, which creates the weather for the environment to keep people away for more natural reasons. And then he went through the barrier. I tried to follow him, but I was injured and I wasn't in the best state to start with, so instead I made my way back to my cabin here and sent a warning to the castle to prepare their defenses, and then I just watched it play out in my fireplace. I saw the man encounter the giant snake guardian, which he destroyed quite brutally. In fact, he managed to use the forest against it. He had a tree grab the snake and impale it on the Lancer statue, where he left it, and broke the statue in the process. Then he walked right by the Berserker statue in front of the castle to no effect. Normally the Berserker statue drives someone to crippling paranoia, but it didn't seem to affect him at all. And then he rather calmly murdered my sisters, who were standing in guard. It was a completely one-sided battle. He summoned earth elementals and had them attack them. Like, they got their hits in, but it was a completely different level of violence. The elementals fought into them, and then finally, once he breached the inner walls of the main castle, we deployed a defensive golem. Not the old man, but another one that we modeled after an actual heroic spirit that we had the benefit of studying for a few months prior to the last war. And it charged him, but he managed to subdue it by sprouting vines from the ground that held it back, and then it just fell. He didn't actually seem to damage it, it just stopped moving. I suspect he must have drained it of its mana, and it had no way to function any further. He then calmly walked up the stairs, encountered the old man, and what he did to the old man was brutal. He had vines climb out of the ground and pin him down. He had stones fly up from the ground and crush him, and then he pulled him into pieces using the vines from the ground until he was no more. You can see that over on the left side. Once he was comfortable with the idea that he'd won, he pulled a seed out from his coat, dropped it on the ground, and the seed began to immediately grow into a tree at least as tall as he was. He then stepped through the tree using some sort of druid spell that I believe I've seen used once or twice before. Stepped out of that tree right at the edge of the barrier, where he'd originally come in, walked through the barrier, and I lost sight of him after that. At no point did he make any demands. He seemed to just be here to kill the old man and leave. And that tree that he left behind has been growing ever since. With each day the tree has gotten larger and the area has gotten worse. I attempted to make my way to the castle to do something about the tree, but once it was clear I had hostile intent, the forest around the castle rejected me, and I was in no shape to fight it. To make matters worse, as the mana dried up, all of the phantasmal species in the area were in danger. We used a statue that I don't believe you've encountered yet. We call it the rider statue. It controls the beast in the area. It keeps them here, and if necessary, it asks them for assistance, which they will generally give. They can be convinced. But the way the mana was running out rapidly here, as you know, phantasmal species need more mana to survive, and with less mana, all that they can really hope to do is feed upon each other. I didn't want them to do that. I knew that I would need their help, so I actually went to the rider statue and I let them out. I let them leave the area for now. so that they could not wander too far. Like, there's still only so much mana in the outside world as well. It can't sustain them, but it was safer than keeping them here and watching them tear each other to shreds. My hope is that on mounting an attack, I could return to the rider statue, ask them to come back, and I suspect since this is the only place that they can realistically get to that can sustain them, they would help mount an attack on the castle, do what we can to take out the tree. Fortunately, before I got to that point, I noticed the three of you arriving, four with your large friend outside, and I think we may have better options than just sacrificing all the phantasmal species if I have your help. But that is the situation as I see it right now.
I'm in.
Obviously, me too.
I would absolutely like to protect the ley line and all of the creatures that live here, if at all possible. I guess my question now is, how do we kill a tree that big?
Get an axe and start chopping? I really wish I could get word to my tribe or some other druids. Any druid worth their salt would want to come help.
Unfortunately, within the barrier, we wouldn't be able to get much message out. You could leave, communicate from the outside. In fact, if you have any other allies in the area, they would also be appreciated.
Crosby.
Crosby, Gunter, maybe.
I'm not sure that Gunter would be... I'm sure he would try, but...
He could throw chili at it. It'll work.
Oh, did you try the chili?
We have some with us, actually, if you would like. Probably.
You're missing it.
May still be hot, and I'll just get out the thermos.
No!
It's possible we could kill the tree with that.
That's very true. It may be a secret weapon. We disabled whatever it was that the bad man did to the statue to cause the blizzard. I did consider using the chili to wipe off the runes, but I just heated some water instead and did that.
I'm sure the statue appreciates that. Who is this other fellow that you mentioned?
Crosby?
I don't think I know him.
One of your colleagues, Kwaku.
He is a necromancer with the Mages Association. I suspect that if he were to find out that there was a Child of Einzbern incident, he would then have to make a choice, and that choice would be to alert the association, which would probably trigger a cleanup team, which would not go well for us. From what I've seen, he doesn't actually like doing that part of his job. He may be willing to help as long as it's resolved quickly, with some kind of contingency. As a necromancer, he might be interested in the fact that you seem to have a lot of ghosts here. That might be something he could actually leverage if they were willing.
There's also the gold.
Gold is a funny thing in mage circles. It makes the world easier to a point.
Oh, wait. Hold on. He pulls out her Blackberry.
We already established there's no signal.
Oh, we didn't hear. Does she have signal?
Here? No. Oh, you've got one of those phones.
I do.
We have one of those in the castle.
Wait, is there a landline here in the castle?
Yes, one of the mages that we commissioned in the previous Grail War insisted that we install a phone. It was before my time, but as I understand it, it upset the old man, and that makes me happy. Honestly, the only guests we get are people that we invite ourselves, which we tend to do by leaving and then performing a communication ritual from the saloon, or the ones who wander in, which is unusual. We had a pair of them show up a few days ago, but they weren't helpful. I think they were trying to hunt phantasmal species. It didn't work out for them because we have a lot of them, and they were hungry. I believe they were run off. I couldn't see what happened once they left the barrier.
So, the only backup we may be able to get would be Crosby, but we'd have to fully leave and go all the way back to the saloon.
I can show you the easiest way to get back. I saw the way you came here, and it made sense when you're following a bird that doesn't understand.
Of course, it would be helpful to have an extra set of hands, but do we really need to try and call in Crosby?
You could use the Lancer statue, mobilize the spirits. They're not the strongest. If you in fact had the help of a necromancer, he would probably be able to reinforce them a bit. Between the spirits, the beasts, if we were to summon the phantasmal species, we could put together something of a group. It's really a shame that we don't have the golem that's right next to the tree.
It does all come back to how do we fight the tree?
This is something that you would know from your role before. The general history of these things dying is they get starved out. So if you were to find a way to cut it off from the mana, you might be able to do something with that. Admittedly, if anyone would know how to redirect mana through a forest, it would be a druid. Yeah, you could roll Arcana or Nature. Ooh!
Oh!
Okay, yeah. Druids actually do practice a form of geomancy, of like shaping the ley lines of areas around forests to help them grow and to also protect them from things that are bad for them. You can redirect mana through ley lines, through runes, or through other disruptive elements at key locations. What really matters is that there are certain points in an area of ley lines where things can divert in different paths. One of the things that you actually had to do, since you've got so much experience with this, is something that you and a group of other druids from your circles did once. You redirected the ley lines around an area that was a victim of gross urbanization. Originally, you had all of this nice, happy nature mana flowing through. Well, they put a landfill there, which you hate. So rather than just let that corrupt everything, you redirected the ley lines around it. So it kind of became a dead spot that it was always going to be anyway, and you redirected it to other places that became greener. Given your knowledge of that, you could probably, after getting a sufficient feel for the area, find a few places where you could cut this thing off. Also, because you nat 20'd it, you would also know that way back when you passed through the saber barrier, it felt like the same kind of redirection just as a wall. Like, mana wasn't allowed to go through it. You could probably apply similar principles to put a cage around this thing. This area is largely a valley full of trees, but it's not a flat valley. Like, there are cliffs, there are different elevation. This cabin is up on top of one of them, so that it can actually see throughout the whole valley area. If you were to climb on top of this and take a look, you could get a general sense based on where the trees are growing better, where things feel more right, of what the biggest ley lines are. If you were to go to those locations, you could probably sort out exactly what needed to be disrupted or changed. And then you would just be doing a druidic ritual there. Like, there's not a spell for it. It's just something that you can do as a druid.
Without relaying any of this, I'm just going to turn to a Covial and be like, is there a ladder to get up on your roof, perhaps?
There's absolutely a ladder. Would you like to take a look?
Yes, absolutely. I might be able to do something, redirect at least the ley lines away from the tree to stop it.
Sure, by all means.
Cool. I will climb up on top of the cabin.
From the top of it, you can see over the area. Based on where you've already been, you know where most of these statues are. And they were kind of along one of the main lines. It's clear that they were connected directly to it. If that's like the main ley line running through the area, you can see the branching off points around it. You can also notice, now that you're seeing it with this in mind, that there's kind of a ring of not dead trees, but just less vibrant trees in line with where you saw that saber thing before. Like, there's clearly just this whole thing along that barrier where things just weren't passing as naturally. But looking around, you can sort of tell by the clusters that there are 3 places that you haven't been that really stand out as places that you could possibly do something. One of them is right in front of the castle. One of them is off to sort of the far south of where you are, like not near any of the paths you've been on. The third one that you haven't been to, it's like just on the other side of the castle. You can't see it too well because of the castle and the tree, but you can just tell from the growth around it that there's probably something there. From your roll before, you can tell that you wouldn't have to like stop all of them. You would probably just need to stop 2 of them. Even if that doesn't choke it out, it would probably lose a lot of its strength and have trouble maintaining whatever it is it's trying to do.
I'll take out like a notebook and just make a quick sketch of the area and note where all of the points are. I'll go back down and then I'll explain the whole process.
Okay, she'll take a look at your sketches and the areas that you're pointing out, and then she'll note that, okay, well, the one right there, the one that's off by itself, that's where the rider statue is, so that would make sense. And then the one over here in front of the castle is where the berserker statue is. On the other side of the castle is... we didn't put a statue there. That place is... it's a different kind of haunted. We don't usually go around there very much. That was where we kept the servant while it was learning to behave.
Haunted? You mean by not so friendly ghosts, then?
Right. The spirits that you've met are the spirits of my sisters who are here by choice. They are held here by the Lancer statue. But the forest was haunted long before we installed that, and they're the unhappy souls that lingered in despair after most of the original Einzberns killed themselves.
Peachy.
They were very sore losers at their inability to recreate the third magic.
So that will be our last resort. Getting all 3 obviously would be for the best, but I think we only need to get 2 to really have an effect on the tree.
If anything, you might force the tree to draw heavily on the third one, and quite frankly, if you want to make the tree draw on the ghosts, that might not go well for the tree either. They're very bitter. This is starting to sound more like a plan that we can actually do with our numbers.
It seems really like the trees are our enemies, and the ghosts may or may not be.
As you say that, this one pokes through the fireplace.
Ah!
Just sort of smiles and then puts away.
The one that's here kept calling herself a broken cup?
I think a broken cup might be what the old man probably called her. I was spared that fate. There have been many attempts at recreating the original homunculus who, for lack of a better word, later became the Holy Grail. They've all been failures, give or take 1 or 2 recent ones. And when a failure was created, they would be discarded. That's what that pile you saw earlier was. That doesn't mean they can't still serve, they just serve in a different capacity. Maybe she thought she was a broken cup because she was a failure as a grail. The way that I understood it, that group of 3 that left, the smallest of this one, she was treated with great respect and referred to as the Grail. My assumption is that she was successful. You would have to ask the golem for details. He's the only one who sees the big picture.
I will have many questions for him if we can get him on the line.
No. Online.
Oh, yes, that makes more sense.
If we can recover the castle, I think we can recover him.
What fantastic species are in this forest?
Under normal circumstances, very large versions of normal animals. A few drakes, if you can believe that. No dragons, the world can't support those anymore. I think there's a basilisk somewhere, but I haven't seen it in a while. There was a snake until recently. Oh, and then there's that bird out there.
Oh,
The bird is a phantasmal.
At present, it's very small, but in the past it was quite large. I believe it's at the size that the world can support at the moment. Shall we head to the first site and begin the ritual? There is some rustling in the bushes. Like, not the ones immediately around you, but the ones coming up. You can see them a little bit easier because I think you're lower to the ground and you can sort of notice the disruption in the snow. Like, it's no longer snowing, so when things rustle through stuff, it's a little more clear that a little bit of dust is falling out of some trees.
I relay this to Anise.
I will approach cautiously.
You can see stuff. It's not so much that something is moving in the bushes. The bushes are actually a thing.
Oh, jeez. Oh, no.
I don't like that at all.
Gonna back away a little bit.
They don't seem to be coming after you yet, but you can tell that they're there.
I suppose we should find another way. Or maybe just kind of give them a wide berth.
They do seem to be stationary for the moment.
What you doing, bird?
I will cast Speak with Animals.
Those plants over there are not plants.
Yes, very good. We figured that out ourselves, but thank you.
No, over there.
Well, oh dear, there's more of the plant monsters over there, too.
And statues up ahead.
Maybe they won't attack us.
Those are things that are called vine blights. The different kinds of blights are sort of territorial. They're kind of like the phantasmal species equivalent of like a Venus flytrap. Like, they sort of lay in wait and they wait for stuff to get really close and then they just latch onto it and eat it. They're capable of moving, but they usually won't. Like, if you were to get in a fight with one of them, yeah, they'd probably just jump out and swarm you. If you get close enough that one of them grabs onto you and can hold you in place, then yeah, they'll try to eat you. But they don't generally walk out into a big open clear space like you're in right now. One thing that stands out to you here versus the ones that you've seen in the past, normally you wouldn't be able to tell at all. That's the whole deal with the different blight species. Like, you can't tell looking at them on a tree. These ones you can see specifically because the trees around them are so drained that they can't actually blend in well anymore. It's like they're the perfect green for what these trees are supposed to be. But because the trees here have been drained to an almost transparent state, you can see them when you're looking for them, and so you don't see any of them in the tree ahead of you.
They're not going to come after us, and I think that if we don't attack the tree won't attack us if we just pass underneath it. I think that's going to be our best course of action.
Would you like me to send in Raps to see what happens?
That would be a good idea.
Raps, the big clunky silk golem, moves towards the trees in front, and as it gets close to them, it actually contorts itself into this ridiculous JoJo pose and hops on one foot between the trees such that it touches none of them, in spite of how big it is. And then it comes out on the other side, and it turns around and looks back to all of you, and then it lifts its right arm, and it gives a big thumbs up.
Alright. Well, it seems like that's the best course of action.
The bird flies over the trees and lands on his hat. In spite of all of your nature-y training, there's just something weird about these trees that makes them strange, and so you reflexively reach up and put your hand against one of the branches. The branch that you touch just sort of crumbles into dust in your hands.
Everything's fine. I didn't just break it. I don't know what you're talking about. Hi, Raps.
Penelope just skips between the trees like la la.
Alright, I guess it's just us now. In spite of her old body, she manages to similarly contort herself around the trees, but it's a lot more fluid when she does it. Similar to what you just did, he's making his way through. He brushes against the tree on the left, which you didn't damage before. And in doing so, he leaves a big imprint along the side of it. I don't think it was like that before, but I'm glad it didn't try to eat me.
Man, we got you guys just destroying trees over here. We should just send you two out to get the big tree.
Okay, so let's get up this cliff. I'm just gonna cast Spider Climb on just myself because it's concentration.
Yeah, you can go up it, no problem.
Perhaps, buddy, help me out here. Yay, I did it!
Two of them are just going to stay down here for right now.
Just gonna plop myself down, crisscross applesauce, and start doing that ritual. While I'm, I guess, in contact with the ley line, does it feel weird?
While you're in contact with the ley line, you can actually feel a lot of the mana in this area, and something is definitely draining this whole area, and like you can extrapolate that it's coming from the direction of the castle, obviously. But as you start to redirect the ley line, there was this absence before, and now that you're redirecting it away from that, more of it's coming in your direction. And you actually have to pick where you want to point it.
If I have a sense of where the saber statue is, I'd actually like to point it that way.
Yeah, you absolutely know where the saber statue is. Like, you can feel it from here doing the ritual, because again, there's a ring where it's much, much harder to push anything through it, and you can see where that's focused. So, for doing that, you're going to do an Arcana check. Are you proficient in Arcana?
I'm not.
Okay, well, when you do this, we're going to add your proficiency bonus anyway, because this is something you know how to do. So that'll be a 6. That's fine. This is going to be a multiple rolls to determine how long it takes kind of thing. You don't have to worry about failing. It just, you need to hit a certain number of successes. You are redirecting some of it. Penelope can do another perception check. As you're just watching this ritual go on, you can actually see a little bit more color returning to the plants around you. Not a lot, like it's clearly not what it should be.
Yeah.
Something is certainly happening.
Ooh.
Not quite as red as it was a second ago. You can do another Arcana check. Alright.
Last time I did this ritual, I had other people helping, I imagine.
Yeah,
Or I
admittedly,
was
this is normally something that's done by a circle of druids. This is not something you've had to do by yourself before, so it's not even that you're doing a bad job, it's just you're doing a lot of people's jobs. But you'll get to brag about it later if you pull it off. Penelope can roll another perception. As she goes on, you get a little bit more color. It's a little less red, a little more green. It's becoming a little bit harder to see those blights in the woods down there as the trees are getting closer to their natural color. You can do a new ritual roll. You can really feel that you're actually doing a bit more now. The coloration is getting much better. It's starting to look a little closer to what it's supposed to. Penelope can't tell the colors are getting any better. Though it does bother her that she can't actually see those blights anymore.
Yeah.
Like, they're just going to mysteriously disappear. Where did they go? I don't see them anymore.
Are you talking about the tree thing, dudes?
Yes, I could see them until the trees got greener, and now I can't see them anymore.
Yeah, that's terrifying.
Like, you didn't see them move away, you can't see them. Like, they're like a weird eye trick now. Give us another ritual roll. You can feel the ley line is successfully redirecting most of what's here away from the castle and towards the saber statue, and in doing so, you can actually feel it's harder to move now because the ley line's like external source outside is getting more cut off by the saber statue, which is what you were going for, so like it's working. And Penelope, roll. You finally rolled a bigger number. I can reveal the rest of the map to you now. Now you can see all of that, and as a bonus, you can see that.
Oh, good. My favorite bonus.
Hey, it's important that you saw them this turn and not next turn.
Yeah.
All right, you've got one more roll for the ritual. With that 18, you do actually complete the ritual, and as you're turning it off and you're wrapping it up, you feel the ley line as it's being redirected through this point brush against the statue and then into you, and by virtue of connecting with the statue, you actually very briefly get a sense of all the phantasmal species in the forest, and there's a ton. You've not felt connected to so many before. You can sense them. You can sense how many there are. You can sense their density, the relative amounts of mana that they have in their bodies, and there's some pretty big things out there. There's some things that are way bigger than you would think the world could sustain anymore. And based on your rolls from before and your understanding of it, it's quite possible that by creating this area that kind of has a giant snow globe over it, mana can build up enough to sustain creatures like this. It's almost like a zoo. The Einzberns essentially created a giant zoo, time capsule, whatever, as a defense mechanism so people would leave them alone while they went about their job. The druids you know would be fascinated to visit a place like this. There's a real chance you could encounter things that you didn't think were possible on this side of the world if you were to wander these woods long enough. Assuming, the tree doesn't kill everything. And with that, the ritual is complete. And because the trees are now back to normal and the whole area is back to normal, you actually can breathe a lot more easily than you could before. This feels a bit closer to like when you were actually outside. Like maybe this region at least is restored to what it needs to be.
Penelope's gonna run up to Anise and be like, there's more creepy vine guys in the bushes over there, just by the way.
I don't think they'll attack us if we don't get near them. Do you know what a Venus flytrap is?
Yeah?
They're like that.
Ooh.
If you get close to them, they'll eat you, but otherwise they're harmless.
I don't want to be plant food.
Well, I'm done with what I needed to do. Did we need to do something with this statue?
We could ask for help for dealing with the tree.
Oh,
Should I do that, or is that something you need to do?
It would probably make more sense for you since you just potentially saved them from starvation. They might appreciate it more hearing from you.
Alright. I guess I'll approach the statue, put my hands on it.
When you put your hand on it, similar to a second ago, you can feel a whole bunch of creatures in the area, and you can hear what they're thinking. It's a wide range of things from I'm hungry, I'm scared, this is fun, where's the ball, all kinds of stuff. So what are you thinking when you do this?
If anyone out there can help us, we are going to take on that giant tree that's sucking all of the life out of the land. Any help would be appreciated. We will not harm you if you will not harm us. If you don't want to fight the tree, just get out of our way, I guess.
You hear a cacophony of replies. They are interpreted as words. They're not just like roars and grunts or whatever, thankfully. In the middle of all of them, you get one of them that's like, we'll do what we can. And it's a very coherent one that you get the sense is coming from something a lot more advanced than the others. Something intelligent is out there and willing to help.
Oh, were the vine things included in the, Zoom call with all of the phantasmals?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Most of what they were thinking was water sun, what that, water sun, what that, water sun. They're not the most sophisticated of creatures.